for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson.
I am Jack Prince.
And we've got quite a few topics today. Of course, our hearts are with the folks at Michigan State University. Another mass shooting in this country, this time hitting real close to home for us. So we'll talk about that. And I am going to start roasting Republicans over their idea that it's not the guns. Well, I got news for you. We'll tell you exactly what we think it is. We also have to talk about the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Apparently, officials are not telling everybody the entire truth as far as what's going on with the chemicals that were on that train. So we'll get to that. We have to talk about the Buffalo shooter was sentenced earlier this week. I want to get to this, actually. This is a study where half of Americans believe that national news organizations intend to mislead or misinform the public. So we'll dip into that a little bit. We've got so much to talk about this week. And before we get into our topics, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on Mastodon by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, and Mastodon accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. Be sure to listen to us on your local Pacifica station. Well, Jack, the ballots have been tabulated. Should we go ahead and get right to it?
Drum roll, please.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Let's get to the music.
Stop. Hammer time.
Oh, yeah, it is hammer time. It's time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. Before we do that, we got to drop the hammer on the douchebag of 2022. The ballots have been tabulated, and we have the results. Well, here's how things worked. We had 77 douchebags throughout the year of 2022. People, organizations, whatever. We had a blue ribbon panel, narrowed down the 77 down to 10. Jack, you were part of that panel.
Yep.
And we had it down to these 10 people: Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, former Michigan gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon, Elon Musk, former candidate for Michigan State House Robert Regan, Berry County, Michigan Sheriff Dar Leaf, Representative Jim Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina, and former congressional candidate Republican John Gibbs. So
what a list.
What a list. What a bunch of characters.
Yeah, you know, you look at your underwear, how dirty it is, and you think, where did all that come from?
Oh, my goodness. So we had several people vote on this. Once we narrowed it down to the 10, we opened it up to our listeners. We posted on our Facebook page, vote for your top 3. I think the biggest loser is Jim Clyburn. Nobody voted for him, surprisingly.
Huh.
The candidates that only received one vote, whether it was first, second, or third place, were John Gibbs, Robert Regan, and Tudor Dixon. So let's get to the cream of the crop here. This is by ranked choice voting. So we'll see how this works out. Let's go ahead to our third place winner. Third place for douchebag of 2022 with 1 first place vote, but 2 second place votes. Your girl, Jack, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, so close, Marjorie.
Yep. All right, should we get to the next one?
Yeah.
Why not? Here we go. Second place for douchebag of 2022 with 3 first place votes, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. There we go.
Yeah. He's climbed from last year. I mean, his potential's unlimited.
Mm-hmm. Well, that leaves some big names. Greg Abbott, Elon Musk, Darleaf, Donald Trump. Who do you think it is?
I'm going to say it's the champion a-hole.
Well, you could be right about that. The winner, douchebag 2022. It was a runaway 6 first place votes for the orange pig himself, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Possibly a decade winner.
Yes. Lifetime Achievement Award. My God.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to our winners there, or losers, depending on how you're looking at this.
You mentioned Darleaf, though. He was particularly, how do I say this, nauseating. And people may not know why. I don't know if you can explain in a few words what was so sickening with this guy. But
well, yes, I can. So Barry County Sheriff Darleaf is a ultra-Christian right-wing nut job. I'll say it. He sides with the militias. He spoke in favor of militias. Yep. He has spoken in favor of violence against the governor when she was
down
kidnapped.
In Lansing in a militia raising hell.
Yes, he was. And now he's going out of his way to investigate non-existent voter fraud in Barry County. And the Michigan Attorney General is investigating him and several other people, including her opponent in 2022, for possibly tampering with voting machines. They could go to prison.
Wow.
So,
yeah, a local guy, but a local guy.
Yes. But this is the kind of thing that you're going to see all across this country. Darleaf is not an anomaly.
No, he's not. No.
Yeah.
You can see the species walking up and down the meat aisle at the grocery store with a gun strapped underneath their coat. You can't miss them. They got a red hat on.
Yep.
Keep your distance. It's they feed on hatred, and Darleaf is a real specimen for us to look at because he is not alone, like you said, Darren.
No, he isn't. Did you see the meme that was going around social media earlier this week? It was a guy, I think he was in a grocery store. He had a gun on each hip, and then he had another one tucked in the back of his pants.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yep.
Can you believe that?
Well, a lot of room in his pants. There's no other competition.
Oh, yeah, must be. And, you know, I did have a good idea, but our good friend and sometimes co-host of the show, Katie J., talked us out of knocking door to door to let everybody know the good news that there's no such thing as God. She was more worried about us getting shot.
Yeah, she's got a good point there.
Yeah,
really.
we were going to call it Carlin's Witnesses.
While you're on the topic of God, one of my favorite ones, they had a marathon prayer meeting.
It's still going.
Is it still going on?
I think it's still going.
Well, I know why. See, that's the thing. I can tell the listeners why it's going on so long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The very first day, somebody said, let's pray, because it says in the Bible, thou shalt seek, thou shalt find. And I want to know how the creator of this earth could allow an earthquake to kill almost 50,000 people, men, women, and children, when he made the earth and certainly could have some influence over it. Yeah. And they haven't gotten an answer yet. They've been waiting now how many days, Darren?
Yeah, maybe
they'll
that
never
is
get an
it.
answer.
Yeah,
nobody's got an answer. Here you have kids being pulled out, 50 hours after the earthquake. Misery. It's just incredible. And people are praying. They say, pray for these people. Wait a second. Well, I thought that their God made everything, had control of it. It says even the sparrows. He's got the sparrows taken care of. But the human beings, they're squashed like bugs. What was he, taking a nap? Yeah. And they're sitting down there waiting for the answer to come. It said, seek and you'll find. So far, no answer.
Jack, he was busy watching the Super Bowl. He was listening to all the prayers from he was listening to all the prayers from all the players on both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I got a prayer, but I'm not going to pray it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of, I want to get to our douchebag of the week. Winner this week is the Tennessee House Republican Party. I have this story. This is Anna Mincer writing for WKRN Television out of Nashville. The Tennessee House GOP sent a message to a freshman Democratic state representative on Friday. Follow the rules or explore options outside of the General Assembly. The Tennessee House GOP wrote on Twitter, quote, if you don't like the rules, perhaps you should explore a different career opportunity that's main purpose is not creating them, end of quote. They responded to a tweet from Representative Justin J. Pearson, Democrat of Shelby County, when he wrote, quote, we literally just got on the State House floor and already a white supremacist has attacked my wearing of my dashiki, end of quote. A dashiki is a traditional West African loose-fitted shirt. On Thursday, Pearson wore a black one in the chamber. He said, quote, wearing my African attire, particularly in Black History Month, is paying homage to the people who allowed me to be here, especially in a place like the Tennessee State House, end of quote. In the chamber that day, a lawmaker made a statement on the importance of dress code without naming Pearson, but saying wearing a tie and jacket honors the legacy of the late Speaker pro tempore Lois DeBerry. DeBerry was the second African-American woman to serve in the Tennessee General Assembly and the first woman to serve as Speaker pro tempore. Representative David Hawk, Republican of Greenville, said, quote, we honor Lois's memory and how we look, how we treat each other, and how we give the respect we hope to get back. And part of that respect is how you look and how you appear. I showed up one night on two wheels trying to get in here, and I did not have a tie on. And she reminded me, Representative Hawk, if you don't have a tie on, you cannot walk through that door. End of quote. But not all lawmakers agreed with Hawk's depiction of how DeBerry would have acted. Representative Karen Camper, Democrat of Memphis, said, quote, she wouldn't embarrass a new member. She would say, let's educate the new member. Let's fold them in appropriately. End of quote. While not finding any specific language in the Tennessee House rules about what lawmakers have to wear on the floor, Pearson was told by the House clerk that the House Speaker sets the decorum. And the rules state that, by the way, apparently. In a statement, a spokesperson for Speaker Cameron Sexton, Republican of Crossville, said they are following in DeBerry's footsteps. He said, quote, during her historic tenure in the General Assembly, the late Lois DeBerry established a precedent for attire that remains in place today. Men must wear a coat and tie if they wish to be recognized in committee or on the House floor. Ms. DeBerry would frequently address members violating this precedent and remind them of the requirement. The Speaker will continue to follow the precedent and the path established by Ms. DeBerry to honor her and her incredible legacy within our legislative body, end of quote. Pearson says using DeBerry's name like this is not an appropriate use of her legacy. He said, quote, to try and attack the African attire of a young black member of the House body is wrong and immoral and a misuse of her legacy. If they actually care about Lois DeBerry's legacy, let's see them put forward legislation for justice, end of quote. He's got a point. Instead, they're bitching about what he was wearing.
Yeah, they got to find something.
Yeah. Pearson said that he plans on wearing the dashiki again. He will wear a tie and jacket over it if he needs to. I'd get a clip-on tie just to piss him off. Like those old clip ties like in the 70s?
Yeah, I had some.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Real fast memory. We had to wear a tie to dinner at the school I attended, the college.
Uh-huh.
Nobody took ties to college. So, everybody had by the door of the fraternity, this tie, you just clip it on and, it didn't match what you were wearing, didn't matter. But it would get you in the cafeteria commons to eat. And the next year they stopped that requirement.
Yeah.
The school did.
Yep. Pearson said the pushback on his attire is another example of how the Republican Party is legislating, adding, quote, whether that be folks who want to wear drag or people who have different abilities or people who want to read certain books, taking power over people's agency is a theme of this body, end of quote. No, it's the theme of the entire bunch of evil, violent, conservative traitors.
Yes, it is. Yep.
All of them.
That was a good way to say it.
Yep.
Very succinct.
Yep. So, to the Tennessee House Republican Party, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
That's right. Yeah, group award this week. They're all douchebags, Jack.
Yeah, they're all douchebags. And in contrary to Nikki Haley, who said yesterday, listen, my fellow Republicans, and I include the group that you just mentioned to me, we have lost 7 out of the last 8 elections, public or the people's vote. We lost 7 out of 8. And it's not our message. Our message is right. Our cause is right. It's just that we're not getting it out. So when you said that the purpose of this committee was to control agency, I believe.
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing somewhat. That's their cause, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't think it's that disguised. Their seeking of power is exclusive. That's it. No compassion, no concern. It is the utmost desire and attainment of power. And you can include the very attractive and younger Nikki Haley with that grouping.
Mm-hmm. Since we're talking about Republicans not caring about anything, let's get to our main story today. And that is the shooting that took place Monday night in East Lansing, Michigan, on the campus of Michigan State University. 3 students murdered, 5 more injured and in the hospital. One of them just got upgraded to stable condition today. The other 4 are still in critical condition.
Wow.
I want to get right to this story because the Democrats have had enough. The Democrats in Lansing. Let's see if they actually follow through on any of this. But let's get to this story. This is Lena G. Stebbins writing for the Michigan Advance. This is dated February 14th. Following a late Monday night shooting that killed 3 Michigan State University students and injured 5 more mere miles from the state's capital of Lansing, Democratic lawmakers are vowing to deliver more than empty words in order to prevent another tragedy. The opening line of a late-night statement from House Majority Whip Ranjiv Puri, Democrat of Canton, read this way, quote, "F*** your thoughts and prayers," end of quote. You know, we need to be saying that a lot more often.
Yep.
Because that's all Republicans want to offer is thoughts and prayers. They don't want to offer policy change. They don't want to offer gun control. They just want thoughts and prayers.
Now, I've seen people shedding tears, politicians in Lansing, women saying, I've had it. That's it. I don't care if I ever get reelected again. I'm going to do whatever it takes to stop this madness and pass legislation that makes a difference.
Puri's statement continues, quote, "Thoughts and prayers without action and change are meaningless. Our office will continue to work tirelessly to pass common sense gun reform immediately. We will not stop until our students can attend school without fear, our communities can attend places of worship in peace, and our society is safe from senseless gun violence." End of quote.
Yeah, pretty damn basic, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got students in this state who were shot at in Oxford, or schools, 50 miles from East Lansing?
Yes.
A year later, as freshmen, they get shot at again.
There was one student that I forget which outlet talked to him, if it was NBC or ABC. She was a survivor of the Sandy Hook shooting. She's a student of Michigan State and now has to go through this again.
Yeah. I see the same malarkey on Facebook from the right-wing yo-yos. If you take their guns away, they'll find their guns somehow. The criminals will have the guns. And we're not talking about taking people's guns away necessarily. But even if we took a gun away from the average American, there's 120 guns per person.
Yeah.
We're talking about a broad enough personal search of the person to uncover, which would have uncovered this shooter's mental difficulties. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't have gotten a gun.
Yeah.
They can't even pass that.
I know. Let me continue here. State Representative Kelly Breen, Democrat of Novi, echoed Puri's statement in a tweet, writing, quote, "Policy and change, your thoughts and prayers. I will not mince words." End of quote.
Yeah.
I think they've had enough now.
I think they've hit rock bottom. Yeah.
Democrats hold slim majorities in both the House and Senate. For the first time in about 40 years, they have a governing trifecta along with Governor Gretchen Whitmer and have vowed to take action on gun control measures that have long stalled in Michigan, such as safe storage and so-called red flag laws. The gunman, who we're not going to identify, police said is not affiliated with the university. He opened fire in MSU's Berkey Hall just after 8 o'clock. 2 students were killed there. He then moved next door to the student union and opened fire again, killing another student. The students that were killed have been identified: Brian Frazier, a sophomore from Grosse Pointe, Alexandria Werner, a junior from Clawson, and Ariel Anderson, a sophomore from Harper Woods. 5 more injured victims, all students, were in critical condition as of Tuesday morning. 4 of them required surgical intervention at Lansing Sparrow Hospital. Did you see the press conference the morning after where the doctor was crying at the podium?
I saw that. Yep.
Michigan State has canceled classes until Monday. House Speaker Joe Tate, Democrat of Detroit, who graduated from MSU, said, quote, "I am angry that the safety and security of Michigan State University has been shattered by the uniquely American scourge of gun violence. This is not a new phenomenon, and the people who elected us to help lead the state have no patience for inaction. We have a choice. We cannot continue to debate the reasons for gun violence in America, or we can act. We cannot continue to do the same thing over and over again and hope for a different outcome." End of quote. In the first 45 days of 2023, there have been 67 mass shootings nationwide. The gunman in this shooting, by the way, took his own life after being confronted by law enforcement. Governor Whitmer, who's also an alumnus of Michigan State University, ordered all U.S. and Michigan flags across the state to be lowered to half-staff until further notice. She said in statements Tuesday morning that, quote, "The whole state of Michigan is wrapping its arms around the Spartan community today. This is a uniquely American problem. Too many of us scan rooms for exits when we enter them. We plan who that last text or call would go to. We should not, we cannot accept living like this." End of quote.
Yeah, that's what was haunting about the letter they found in the shooter's pocket. He had a long list of places that he was going to go and shoot. And what was scary, it was just businesses, cleaners, or, it was the society around you. It wasn't a target unless he had some grudge at these places, but they were just random businesses around Lansing. I have no idea what was in his mind that made him pick those targets. But the point is, you can be anywhere. You could be in any segment of society, any building, business place, park, concert hall, anywhere. And you run the risk, like Whitmer, or our governor said very aptly, of being shot, of trying to figure out your last phone call, because it can hit you at any time.
Absolutely. You're not safe driving down the road anymore. There have been shootings on the highways.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think this is going to pick up traction for a lot of reasons. One of them being the fact that Attorney General Dana Nessel has twin sons who attend Michigan State University. One of them had just left one of the locations on campus shortly before shots were fired. That's according to CNN. Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brinks, Democrat of Grand Rapids, also has a child who attends Michigan State University. We should mention Winnie Brinks has been a past guest on the show, as has the Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
The American Federation of Teachers President Randy Weingarten and David Hecker, the president of AFT Michigan, demanded that politicians take immediate action on gun control. Similar sentiments were echoed by U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow and groups including the Michigan Education Association, the MSU Administrative Professionals Association, Campaign for a Safer Michigan, Detroit Action, the Michigan Health and Hospital Association, Progress Michigan, and more. Mitchell Robinson, who's a member of the State Board of Education, said that his two sons were on campus when the shooting began. One of them were in the Union and heard the shots. They are both safe, thankfully.
Yeah, as an educator, my ed psych remembrance I remember the page of the basic objectives and structure of public education. And number one was a safe environment. Before we get to anything else, before there's any other objective you need to worry about, that was the page one of my education preparation as a teacher in this state, was that it was essential, absolutely imperative, there be safe environment for the students. And that objective cannot be met at any school in this state, at any level of education. The most basic and important objective is we cannot guarantee or even suspect that those children have a safe environment any longer. It's gone.
Yep. Jack, the day after the shooting, or it might have been 2 days after, there was an incident where there was a traffic accident involving a stolen automobile, and the two people inside tried to enter the West Michigan Academy of Environmental Sciences to hide from the cops, and they were caught in the vestibule. They did not get into the building, but that's still kind of scary that they went to a school to try and hide from the cops.
Yeah, as you said, that's not that far from my location.
Yeah. So you've heard the Democratic statements about this shooting. You want to hear what the Republicans said? Here we go.
Yeah, I think I know, but I need to hear it again just one last time.
Here's some examples. The lone statement from the House GOP caucus on Twitter reads this way, quote, "Today we are all Spartans," end of quote. State Senator Eric Nesbitt, Republican of Porter Township, and Mark Huizinga, Republican of Walker. I believe he's your representative, isn't he, Jack?
I'm afraid so.
They issued statements of their own. Nesbitt wrote, quote, "Parents and community leaders are desperately searching for ways to prevent these senseless attacks on the innocent," end of quote. Michigan State Senator Lisa McClain, Republican of Romeo, tweeted that she is heartbroken and praying for the MSU community and families affected. U.S. Representative John James, Republican of Farmington Hills, said, quote, "This culture of violence and murder must stop," end of quote.
Yeah, saying that must stop. Yeah, of course it must stop. It's how to stop it. Mm-hmm. And the first repugnant that you mentioned that said that today we're all Spartans, no, today we're all targets.
Yep.
All of us.
That's right. We really are. I want to real quickly mention a kind of a follow-up story to this. John Agar at the Grand Rapids Press talked to the father of the shooter, and I want to read a little bit of this here. The father said he's devastated. He wanted to apologize to the victims' families. He said that his son, once, quote, "the best kid in the world," end of quote, and a hard worker, had increasingly turned inward after his mother died in 2020. Now listen to this, Jack. The father tried to get him to go to church, go fishing, or ride a bike, but he stayed home and played video games.
Mm-hmm.
He said his son looked for a job hours before the shooting, but was content at home playing video games, his father adding, quote, he got tired of living, end of quote. So instead of trying to get his son help, you need to come to church with me.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, the father is not alone with the generation that holds up in their room and stays on a 6-inch long screen all day long.
Mm-hmm.
The mental health community will tell you right now, it's an absolute epidemic. People are isolated. They're furious. The man that did this shooting, we will never know. We can't talk to him, but we can get his actual MO and his thinking in millions of other people. They're out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm really afraid that the doomsday, the Walking Dead scenario where everybody is out to eat the next person has a deep psychological impact, because that's what people are sensing. I know that I've jumped, but I've been startled with loud noises that never bothered me before. Mm-hmm. And I think that's representative of the psychic of the United States right now. Everybody is holding their breath, and it gets closer. It gets closer. The shootings get closer. More and more people know somebody. There's no way out of this unless there is some drastic decisions made. If it was complicated, it'd be even more depressing. It's not complicated. We've talked on this show. Australia, they had a school shooting. They took away the automatic weapon. Yep. They took it away, and they haven't had another mass shooting in years.
Yep.
It's not a hard equation to figure out. Mitt Romney has taken $15 million from the gun lobby.
Yep.
The guy in North Carolina, his name escapes me right now, was second place. I don't know, 12 million. Who cares when you get in the millions?
Yeah.
And has 1,500 people shot in just 1 year in North Carolina, where he's a representative. The millions and millions of dollars, the interest that the Republicans hang on to for power and for economic funding of their campaigns is costing American lives, costing mothers their sons, costing people sleepless nights. It's rotting at us because of the greed and the power-hungry Republicans that are resisting legislation.
Yep. And I'm going to say this right here. There was a Republican lawmaker out of Lansing. I believe he represents Allendale. I cannot remember his name. His name's not important. But he gets on TV and he starts talking about, well, it's not the guns. We need more mental health resources. We need this. We need that. Nobody, I got news for you. It is the guns.
Yep. There's nothing more foolish than the obvious to those who are unwilling to admit the truth.
Yep. Do we have mental health deficiencies in this country? We most certainly do. You know, there's not enough counselors. I could go on and on with the whole mental health issue, but I'm just going to tell you this, that when he said that pissed me off to the point I was screaming at the top of my lungs to the TV, because I've been dealing with mental illness for 30 years. I haven't picked up a gun to go after anybody. Don't lump people who are mentally ill as people who commit these. You want to know what the problem is in this country? We have a violence problem in this country. Everything that we do is violent. We worship violence. We use violence as the first, last, and only tool to settle anything. Oh, little Billy's getting bullied at school? Well, you need to teach little Billy how to punch the bully in the nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, whether it's fists, knives, or guns, that's our, again, first, last, and only resort is violence.
And our underpinnings as a civilization, Western civilization, is a religion called Christianity, who absolutely has one repeated answer to its problems, and it's to kill something. It's a God. There's a God within Judeo-Christianity who had to have pigeons killed and their intestines cooked, pigs killed, bulls killed. Then there was human sacrifice, and then ultimately he killed his own son. Mm-hmm. Every problem that you see for this God in the sky is answered by killing something, yet they have the ignorance and audacity to call him the God of life.
Mm-hmm.
Just the opposite. That's the underpinnings. Then you have, on top of it, the double-edged sword, no pun intended, where the politicians get funding, like I talked about with the NRA, but they on the other side have the how do I say this? The penchant. I've seen it. I don't want to sound indecent, but they claim that now Carl Tucker, make sure you use a T with that.
Yeah,
is a masturbator of violence. I heard that term, and then I thought, yeah, that's perfect. His climax, his ultimate form of self-satisfaction, he's a masturbator of violence.
Mm-hmm.
They thrive on violence. Their motif and their calling card is hatred and violence. That's one side of the sword. And then the other side of it, they are weapon crazy, and they enable people to put their hands on the most killing weapon we have, guns, and backed all up with, as I said, the foundation, the cornerstone of a violent religion. So that mixture, that cocktail is resulting in 69, 72 shootings, more shootings than we have days in this year since the 1st of January. And it's going to get worse. I guarantee it's going to get worse unless that roadblock of ignorance and stubbornness and political manipulation with violence and guns is blown up.
Yeah,
that it's guaranteed to get that bad. How can it not?
Yep. I'm going to go ahead. I want to read this to you, Jack. A friend of mine wrote on her Facebook page on Tuesday, prayers for Michigan State University students and staff. And that started a discussion that some of her friends and I joined in too, saying that we're done with prayers. We want action. We really want action.
Yeah.
One of her friends said, I'm ready for real gun control. So she was asked what gun control looks like. She said, we need background checks and mental help in this country. I am over not doing anything. Our kids are getting killed. Need to try something new. Thoughts and prayers are just plain laziness.
That's right. Yep.
So she got responded to, and I'm going to mention her name. You say something stupid, I'm calling you out, Melissa Uti. Don't say stupid shit around me, because I will call you out on it. I don't care. I'm really done with these violent conservatives. Here's what she said. Law-abiding citizens obtain and use guns lawfully. When will the gun control folks choose to comprehend this? The nation doesn't have a gun problem. We have a God problem. Lack of faith and behavior that supports a God-led life are lacking. I don't care the name God goes by. Lord, Jesus, Jehovah, Allah, Brahma, Yahweh, etc. Just follow a loving God and emulate his example.
Yeah, I don't care what name you go by. Yahweh, God, Trump, whatever you want to use.
Yep. Here's my response to her. Melissa, a full 1/4 of this country is either atheist like me, agnostic, or non-believers. I guarantee we're not part of the problem. We have a violence problem in this country, and I told her we worship violence.
True.
You know? They don't get it. They don't want to get it.
No.
Like that fucking moron in Allendale doesn't want to get it. It is the guns. Period. End of story. It's the fucking guns. Oh.
It is that simple. I think, though, like you said, we've reached to that point. The frustration I've heard in some of these politicians and the resolve that I see, it's not that far to spring. I think you're going to see a real movement. I really do, to stop it. The problem really boils down to the right hanging by its fingernails on 3 or 4 ridiculous talking points. One of them you just heard from Melissa. Is that her name?
Yes.
And that is that the religious people aren't violent. That you have got to be so ignorant of history Completely.
Religious people are the most goddamn violent people in history.
Yeah. But they are so ignorant of history, and yet they want to take history away. DeSantis the other day said to a person, well, listen, nobody ever talked about slavery. Nobody ever did anything, even mentioned slavery until Americans did. Then the guy looked at him and said, 1712, I think it was, the British made it outlawed, and it was like 50 years before America did. They have no understanding of history. They can't trace the violence in this country. They don't know what the manifest destiny is. They don't know there was a bounty on Indian scalps. They have no history teaching them our trail, our path, how we got here.
Yeah, because these conservatives want to stop teaching it, and they're succeeding.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I would run around Facebook the same exact theme. And, I pointed out some of the most violent passages in the Bible. One of them where God slew a guy because he ejaculated on the ground. Another where 44 bears gobbled up 44 teens were gobbled up by bears because they made God mad. God's answer when Moses didn't obey him was to have his wife cut the foreskin off of his penis.
Yeah.
You've never heard such violence. The man who's most quoted in college papers, Noam Chomsky, said, this Bible that you call the good book is the most genocidal, violent book ever written.
Yeah.
There's reason why the civilized part of the world called Europe refuses to have a Bible in the physical buildings of schools. I'm not talking about taught. I'm talking about it can't be in there, like it's toxic. Yeah. You pick it up like a rat by its tail. You say, it ain't coming in here. Keep it out of here. I'd love to. When you told me that this lady gets into the godless thing and all that, and then, the violence is the lack of school prayer, it just sets me off.
I'm just going to simply put it like this. I will be heard come hell or high water, whether you like it or not. Unreal.
No, we're at high water right now. We're at high water.
Yes, we are.
And high water at the same time.
The folks in East Palestine, Ohio are in high water as well.
With dead fish floating around them.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's go to this story. This is Aria Bendix and David K. Lee writing for NBC News. This is dated February 13th, and I'm actually surprised that the national media outlets are finally starting to pick this story up. It took long enough. For days, authorities have been telling residents of the area around East Palestine, Ohio, that it is safe to return home after a 150-car train carrying hazardous chemicals derailed February 3. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources said the chemical spill resulting from the derailment had killed an estimated 3,500 small fish across 7.5 miles of streams as of Wednesday. One resident of North Lima, more than 10 miles from East Palestine, told WKBN television in Youngstown that her 5 hens and rooster died suddenly Tuesday. The day before, railroad operator Norfolk Southern had burned train cars carrying vinyl chloride, a flammable gas, to prevent an explosion. For some people who live near the derailment site, the reports continue to spur fear that they and their animals might be exposed to chemicals through the air, water, and soil. These people are scared to death, and they should be.
They should be.
And here's the thing. This train derailment could have been prevented, Jack.
Trump took the brakes off.
Literally took the brakes off.
Literally.
Electronically controlled pneumatic brakes were required on trains carrying deadly chemicals up until the orange pig got into office.
Mm-hmm.
And now, is it going to get any better? No, because Pete Buttigieg won't put the brakes back on.
Yeah, that would piss off a company. It costs money. So
tough
regulation. Yep.
What about us? We have to drink water. We have to breathe air. There's no substitute for it. When the clean water goes away, when the clean air goes away, guess who else goes away? We do.
Yeah, it's the basics. We're down into the basics. We're talking about a basic, safe educational environment. They asked DeWine, they said, what would you do? Would you leave your home?
I saw that.
He goes, I'd drink bottled water, and I'd stay in my house.
I'd like to stand him in a house down there. I really would. I mean, it was bad enough that we had to give their police department douchebag of the week last week for throwing that News Nation reporter to the ground like he was a hardened criminal. Unbelievable. Is there anything else you want to add to this East Palestine story? Because we still have a lot to get to.
No, let's move on.
All right, I want to get to this. Since we've been talking about violence in this country, I want to get to this story. This is Brian Bull writing for KLCC Radio out of Portland, Oregon. This is dated February 9th. A Portland area woman convicted of assaulting a Eugene cookie shop owner has been sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison. Lane County Circuit Court Judge Stephen Morgan sentenced 46-year-old Amy Verlee Hall of Gresham to 46 months in prison after a jury found her guilty of assault, criminal trespass, harassment, burglary, and disorderly conduct on January 31st. Man, they turned her around fast for sentencing, didn't they?
Yeah. This is a prototype. This is your violent Republican traitor. What you just read, that list, that's the recipe. Full force.
Yep. On November 3rd, 2021, Hall and an accomplice, Ricky Collin, confronted Deirdre Sturpey inside of Crumb Together over her store's pandemic face mask policy, which was in compliance with Oregon's statewide directive at the time. Things turned violent, and after thrashing, screaming, and struggling with the woman, Hall and Collin left the store with Sturpey's baseball bat. The pair were arrested shortly after Sturpey showed video of the incident to Eugene police. During sentencing, Sturpey shared a brief statement on the long-term psychological trauma of having to relive the encounter through the video going viral on social media and from local TV coverage. Sturpey said that she had to regularly talk to concerned customers about the encounter, as well as take questions on what had become of Hall and Collin since. Sturpey said she often woke up in a sweat from the experience and was grateful for her husband Tony's comforting support. Sturpey said, quote, "My dream became reality, and then my reality became a nightmare," end of quote. She said that justice had only been half served because Hall's partner, Collin, remains unaccounted for. There are warrants out for his arrest in Lane and Washington counties. Hall was allowed to make a statement ahead of her sentencing in a roughly half-hour disputation. Listen to this. Hall said that she and Collin had entered Crumb Together peacefully and only meant to empower Sturpey in wake of the COVID BS. She frequently accused the court of unlawfulness and said, quote, "I'm the only innocent one here in this room," end of quote. So obviously she hasn't learned her lesson. Maybe she will after 4 years in prison. In his sentencing, Judge Morgan admonished Hall, saying that it was disappointing that she leveled blame at everyone but herself. Hey, that's a quality of the Republican Party, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a leading trait.
The judge added that, quote, "Misunderstanding the law is not a defense," end of quote. He also told Hall that she had engaged in bully conduct at the Crumb Together store and that her conviction by the jury was based on what was seen in the video as opposed to any manipulation of justice. Once she gets out of prison, she will be on 3 years post-prison supervision. She was also ordered to pay $1,185 in restitution to Sturpey for medical expenses. So,
did you see any of the footage? Can you describe for me anything at all what happened that day inside the store?
I actually did not see any of the footage.
Okay.
But apparently they wrestled her bat away from her, so they had to have gotten pretty physical with her.
They're out there.
Well, I hope they get the partner, because he's facing a litany of charges once he gets nabbed. Oh, I want to get to our next story here. We mentioned the sentencing for the Buffalo grocery store shooter. Let's get to this. This is Carolyn Thompson and Jennifer Peltz writing for the Associated Press. This is dated February 15th out of Buffalo. A white supremacist who killed 10 black people at a Buffalo supermarket was sentenced to life in prison without parole Wednesday after relatives of his victims confronted him with pain and rage caused by his racist attack. Anger briefly turned physical at Peyton Gendron's sentencing when a man in the audience rushed at him. The man was quickly restrained. Prosecutors later said that he wouldn't be charged. The proceeding then resumed with more emotional outpouring from people who lost loved ones or were themselves wounded in the attack. Did you see the video of the guy trying to rush him?
Yeah, he looked like a linebacker to me, man. He was on his way.
Yeah, well, I wish he would have got a hold of the little bastard.
Well, he gave a perfunctory apology, not the guy that tried to rush him, but the little killer in the orange jumpsuit. Yeah, and you could tell he was reading his lawyer's writing. There was absolutely no human compassion or sincerity in it.
Yep.
The judge didn't fall for it. She let him have it.
Yep.
You will not see another day of sunlight outside of incarceration the rest of your life.
Yep. By the way, Gendron still faces separate federal charges. If he's convicted, he could end up in Terre Haute getting the death penalty, which, hey, I'm all for at this point. You know, oh, well, you're not a progressive if you believe in the death penalty. I got two words for you. Marvin Gabriel. Look him up. Right there will make you a proponent of the death penalty when you read what kind of stuff Marvin Gabriel did. Let me get to our next story here. I don't want to talk about any more violence, but I want to get to this real striking story here. This is David Bowder writing for the Associated Press out of New York. Half of Americans in a recent survey indicated that they believe national news organizations intend to mislead, misinform, or persuade the public to adopt a particular point of view through their reporting. The survey, released Wednesday by Gallup and the Knight Foundation, not Michael Knight, not that one, Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. So the survey, sorry about that, nerding out here.
We need that. We need a little of that.
Yeah, the survey goes beyond others that have shown a low level of trust in the media to the startling point where many believe there is an intent to deceive. Asked whether they agreed with the statement that national news organizations do not intend to mislead, 50%, one half, disagreed. Only one quarter, 25%, agreed with that statement. Similarly, 52% disagreed with the statement that disseminators of national news, quote, care about the best interest of their readers, viewers, and listeners, end of quote. 23% of respondents believed that the journalists were acting in the public's best interest. What do you think about this, Jack, as a journalism teacher in high school?
Well, I think those numbers obviously have increased precipitously, but the problem is that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just can't throw media out. You just can't throw government out. And we know a totalitarian government or totalitarian leaders, that's the first target. They have to rid people of listening to any media. They want exclusive connection. You listen to the fur, you listen to the orange monkey, because he's the only guy telling you the truth. Mm-hmm. So I would urge people to listen to the media and have enough sense to be careful and weigh. I remember as a young journalist reading where Chomsky would read 10 newspapers a day. 10, he lived in New York, he read the New York Times, but he read 10 daily. He had an assortment. He would weigh and contrast and seek the truth on his own initiative. He didn't sit in his chair and get spoon-fed from, an opinioned news agency, and we got plenty of those. So I'm just warning people, you don't throw the media out. You push for veracity, and you work hard to make sure you glean the truth from it. Has the media become worse, indicative of those numbers? Yeah, it has. And there are people who are just solely tied to the corporations, and they promulgate what the corporation wants them to.
And the problem starts at the top. It's not the news organization, it's their corporate owners that put pressure. I warned people 35 years ago about this. I said, this is what's going to happen. I apparently can see the future, so I don't know.
Well, you're
Oh,
absolutely
boy.
right. You were absolutely correct on that. And we need to make a list of things that we talked about and that you talked about that have come, unfortunately, true.
Yeah.
Warnings that may have sounded a little bit off the left field. Now they're heart center.
I wrote my senior thesis at Grand Valley about this entire subject of corporate ownership. What happens when you start buying up stations? You start losing individual voices. You get one voice. You get one same voice that emanates from headquarters somewhere else. Sinclair Broadcasting, Nexstar Media, Gannett, Scripps, it doesn't matter. Same thing. And one of the other problems, and I'll say this real quick, is the mixing of news with opinion and not separating them distinctly with either a chyron on the screen that says editorial or some sort of statement that runs that says this is an editorial.
Right. You know, we lived in Michigan all of our life, both of us. At a time, the Jackson Citizen Patriot, the Grand Rapids Press, the Ann Arbor News were independent.
Yeah.
They were individually run, and you had variation, and you had a mixture of political perspective. Now, it's one company. It's one codified company. When you get that kind of monopoly that owns every newspaper in the state of Michigan.
They've actually have been together as a group for quite a number of years. The problem is that once the new ownership took over some 20 years ago, that's when things really started to go downhill. They started laying off journalists, writers. You can't find the office of the Grand Rapids Press if you searched for it. I'm sure it's the same with the Muskegon Chronicle.
Right. You know, the multi-million-dollar building right there on 96, huge building. It's empty.
Yeah, the old press building where they would print the paper.
Yeah.
Because that's moved to where? Cincinnati, somewhere in Ohio.
Yeah. But you hit it on the head as a senior in Grand Valley, where you have these tycoons when they own media, and we when watching Bezos and these guys, they promulgate their crap. They disguise it, and they get pretty blondes and short skirts to dish it out, but it is their way of taking over.
Yep. The study says that journalists need to go beyond emphasizing transparency and accuracy to show the impact of their reporting on the public. One small consolation, Americans have more trust in their local news than they do in their national news. In a picture of how people get their news, 58% said they get their news online, 31% said television was their primary source, 7% said radio, 3% mentioned printed newspapers or magazines. Generation Z, 88% of them got their news online.
Wow. No, I remember when Stewart was on the air, the comedian. He had a high rate of believability. People put a lot of faith in his political perspective. He's a comedian.
Yeah, Jon Stewart. Oh, yeah.
Jon Stewart.
Stephen Colbert, too. Oh, boy. Well, Jack, I tell you what, we've hit a myriad of topics today, and looking at the clock, we are out of time for this week.
Wow, that went fast.
Yes, it did. Well, folks, we'll be back next week. In the meantime, I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
Absolutely.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.